Welcome everybody. My name is Tom Devine. I am with AVPro Edge, and I want to thank you guys for joining me today. We are going today to talk about HDMI extension and HDMI, how to get HDMI signals over long distances. And so we're going to talk about all the different ways AVPro Edge can help you, but just some best practices along the way as well. So that is what you're here today. I don't have a presentation. I know some of you love sitting through PowerPoints. But today we're going to do everything live. I have the products hooked up, they're powered, we have sources, I have TVs behind me, and we're going to actually see the products being used live today. Before we get into the show, let's do a little bit of house cleaning. If you're watching on the GoToWebinar software live, I want to thank you for joining us today. You will find a questions tab right on your GoToWebinar control panel. There you would be able to ask questions throughout this entire presentation. And I'll tell you what, this presentation is going to be a lot better. As many questions as you have, ask them right away. So to answer your questions, I will be here, but I do have a moderator. So I have Jared Kantak. He is a part of the AVPro team, and he is going to be running the questions area and shouting out to me when I need him. How you doing, Jared?
Doing great, Tom. Excited to learn about some HDMI extension.
Excellent. I know you know everything already, Jared. That's why he's the expert, and he'll be manning those questions for you. But if he feels that one should, be heard by everybody, he'll just shout right on out, and we'll address it so we can talk about it. So without further ado, if you are watching on YouTube, I do want to say just put it in the comments, and then we can follow up on the with your questions that you have. Whenever you leave the comment, we check on YouTube all the time. And if you want to share this with anybody afterwards, we are going to be recording this and placing it on YouTube for all the people that are watching it live. So now let's get into actual HDMI extension. And so for most consumers in the world, when you have a source, how you would connect that source to a display or projector is you have the source close to the projector or display. You take an HDMI cable, this one right here, and you would take this end, you plug it into the source, this end, you plug it into the display, and bada bing, bada boom. Everything works nice. You get your picture. There's nothing to worry about. But for us, we're professional installers. We need to be able to send these video signals to 100 rooms, and we need to send them from one building to another building, and we need to make sure that all the rooms get it, or all of the computers that these are going to be attached to are also going to be in a secured location, and they're going to be accessed other places. Well, AVPro Edge makes sure that we have you covered, making sure that you're still getting the best quality signal, you're still getting the best quality picture, but you're still able to do and install the jobs that you want to install by being able to remove those sources and those sinks. And we do that with a litany of different extension options. And this one is always going to be the tried and true, right? The HDMI cable, the one that we use for the thing that connects to that source, that connects to the display. But we're going to talk about the things that go in between. Now, HDMI, as a company, they say, don't go over 5 meters. When you have a cable that goes over 5 meters, you're actually could be losing too much data in between. Each one of these HDMI cables has 19 pinouts, and all of them are sending data from one end to the other over copper wires inside this cable. Well, if that data is sent too long, errors are, bits start losing. You start losing bits along the way, and at the end, you don't have a signal quite well enough to get what you need. You will have no picture on the screen. So how do you get a longer extension? And here's the way that you do that. You do that with HDMI cables. Now, this one was your standard one, but if you need to go longer, there are ways to go longer. This is a 8-meter cable. So it actually goes further than, your under 5-meter cable. But let's look at some differences on this right away. Look at the thickness on these two. So as you can see, we have a much thicker cable here than a much thinner cable here. This cable was built to go the distance. And since these are bullet train cables, they're guaranteed to do 4K 60, 444. So you're getting a full 18 gigabit HDMI 2.0 signal. But in order to send them long distances, we have to thicken that copper, make that copper really thick. And we all know when there's a lot of copper involved, there's a lot of cost involved. So the longer your cable gets, the thicker it's going to be, the more expensive it's going to be. So let's look at some other solutions. One solution for sending it very distant or sending HDMI long distances is using this type of cable. This cable, I mean, look how long it is. It comes on a spool. It's 30 meters. That's a long way. So you have a 100-foot cable here, and it's very thin. And the way that this is done is there's TMDS lines inside your HDMI cable. That's in 3 individual actual cable are wires that where the audio video signals are put upon to be sent from one end to the other. Well, in this type of cable, this is called an active optical cable. And what these ends do is these ends will actually convert that HDMI signal into an optical signal that can be sent long distances and then convert it back. And so you're able to do that with just this cable. So this is what you want to do for all those long distance runs. Just use this cable. This is a great cable. What happens with that fiber later as well, by using one of Bullet Train's long haul cables, you have that are AOC, you have that fiber optic inside. And later you can take this and you cut it off and boom, you throw this away. But what's inside and what's left in your wall is you have these pieces right here, which are fiber. This fiber now can be terminated safely because we use clear line SSF fiber inside our HDMI cables. And now I would be able to put an LC or an SC end on the end of this and then put a HDMI, or it could even be a network, but you could take some sort of converter, plug it into each one of these ends, and now the cable that you went through the wall when you installed this can be used for the next, 50 years, doing whatever kind of information you need to send down the line, even if it's not HDMI. So here's your options. If you need to send to HDMI point to point, you have long cables, you have short cables. All right, presentation over, right? Of course not, guys. What happens when you get on site and they want something done and you need to get this TV, the signal, and that computer's in 100 meters away? Well, how are you going to get this cable or this cable in through the wall and through the wall all the way along and then drop it back down? It has a big head on it. It's very hard to do. But most installations have category cable installed. And category cable is something that the professional audio video world uses for distributing audio video signals. So even though category cable is used for internet and networking, the audio video industry has also repurposed it to send very, very high quality HDMI signals long distances. And we do that using HD-based T technology. So now everything I'm going to show you here for a little bit is I'm going to show you our HD-based T extender sets, a set that allows you to convert an HDMI signal on one end, send it long distance over category cable, and then convert it back to HDMI on the other end. Before we look at the actual products that we're going to use here, let's first look at the differences in HDMI cabling. So if we look here, I have 2 pieces of roll-off. I have 2 pieces of of category cable. So we have twisted pairs. They're the same amount of twisted pairs inside each one, but they are a little bit different. And I want to show you the differences because if you, as an installer, get the choice, we always want you to go with a better category cable, and here's why. So here's your Cat5. You have your 4 sets of twisted pairs. When you set it up and you have your RJ45 end, you terminate it, bada bing, bada boom. This is Cat5, and it's great, and it's everywhere, and it's been used for 20 years, and you'll find it everywhere. But there's a lot of problems that can come with this. If it gets crimped, it's very susceptible to EMI. It doesn't have any shielding at all in between the different twisted pairs, even inside the own cabling. Where a Cat6 cable, you'll see, actually has this white piece right here that is going to protect each one of these twisted pairs inside this long cable. So if you have the chance and you're using audio video, HDBaseT says that you need to be using category 6. That's the only cable that you can ensure that you'll have a quality signal with. So now you have that quality signal, you have your category cable inside of the wall, and you're excited that it's already there. You're saying, oh, this category cable goes here and it reaches all the way back to my home run. Perfect. I can place a rack system down in this other off the side secured area, and we can make these long video runs using the category cable. So to do that, we have all of these different choices. So as you can see, I have all these black boxes here. So let's talk a little bit about my setup. What you guys are seeing right now is you are seeing 3 sources. I have a Roku, I have a test pattern generator where I'm able to choose the type of resolution and timing that can go out of it. And then I have a MacBook Pro, just a very normal computer that we would see in a lot of different types of installations. And behind me, I have 3 HDR 4K televisions, and they are right now connected to these 3 sources, but we're running all those sources over category cable. So let's talk a little bit about those differences in the different types of signaling that we need with extenders. Jared, has there been any questions come check in before I get in to the actual point-to-point HDBaseT extenders?
Tom was just asking Cat 6A standard, Cat 6A, or Cat 6 shielded. Per the HDBaseT spec, shielded is always recommended. Of course, there is no interference. Cat 6A should work fine, but it's always recommended to use shielded.
Exactly. The more shielding, the better. Even Cat 6A with this internal shielding is not going to have that outer shielding. Even just if you have the time and you're running all of this cable, we always suggest running the best possible cable that you're able to. Cat 6 shielded is going to be a great cable to run, and you're not going to have to worry about any problems. But if you get on site and you don't have that available, we'll make sure that there are some other options available for those instances where you can't get Cat 6 shielded onto it. Before I go away from category cable, and I did talk briefly about fiber, I do want to say if you have the option now and you are wanting to make sure that your customer's house, your customer's installation at a school, your customer's stadium, whatever the installation is going to be, if you're running cable and you have the chance, we suggest you also run a duplex fiber cable. This will give you the future proofing you need so that when copper, down the road, when we can't figure out compression as well as the data is getting bigger and bigger, we can switch over to fiber and you can still use very, very quality products that convert audio video to fiber. If you look at avprotech.com or avproedge.com, you will be able to look at all of the different types of extenders we have in depth, see all the different ins and outs. But I'm going to give you a really high level approach to kind of what you need to look for and how to order AVPro Edge extenders. So let's look. Right now, let's take our first example of what we're demoing. I have right here our best-selling extender. This is the AC EX70 UHD kit. We've sold, thousands and thousands and thousands of these. They're in every installation around. It's a very standard kit. This one actually does audio return channel, so it is a little bit of a variation on it on the original one, but it's that one UHD branded kit. And so we're using HDBaseT. And so we have right now connected to this panel, this screen. So if I look at my test pattern generator, I can change my different patterns. As you can see, it's switching before. I'm going to keep with green because at AVPro Edge, we like to keep it green. And as you can see, I'm sending right now a signal, and it is a 4K signal, but it's a 4K 30 signal. And this extender is working hard and pushing that signal through. So I have the test pattern generator going into this device. I have this piece of category cable connected to my receiving device, and my receiving device is connected to an HDMI cable that I have connected to this TV. And we can see that this is working perfectly. This extender, it is slated to send HDMI signals that are 4K, 40 meters, and HDMI signals that are 1080p, 70 meters. So basically for 4K, this is a 40 meter extender. Now, this covers a lot of different things, and this is what you're gonna find a lot of different situations. You're gonna be perfect with this extender. But AVPro Edge offers a lot of different variations, because even though this does 4K 30, if we do want to bump it up to 4K 60, we're not actually able to do that using this extender. So what I will do to demonstrate that is I will change my test pattern generator. I'm going to change my styling, and I'm going to change the signal output, and I'm going to hit OK right now on 4K 60. Boom. So you see right here, it has now changed that signal. It's pushing 4K 60 and 18 gigabit per second signal into this extender. And this extender is now not showing anything on the screen. And you, as an installer, may find yourself doing this exact same thing. Many of the latest computers push out 4K 60 444. Many of the latest sources push out 4K 60 444. And in order for your distribution system to handle that, you need to have a product that was built to handle those high bandwidth signals. Now this, our best-selling extender, is not built for that. But luckily, we have a whole line of extenders called our 444 extenders in different sizes that are able to do that. So now let's move on from our 40 meter extender to our 70 meter extender. And we're going to go from our UHD extender to our 444 lineup of extenders. And now we're going to see some truly powerful signals pumping through. So I'm going to keep this on 4K 60, and I'm just going to swap sources here. So I'm going to swap my TV or my computer with this one. And I'm going to put my generator signal right in here. Okay. So now, we are going to have my pattern generator over here. Now we're trying to pump a 4K signal from my computer through this extender. Well, that's not able to happen, but I can go into my computer settings, and I'd be actually able to change this as well. So I can go to display. Oh, I guess you can't even see them right now. So I'll get off of that. I apologize. And so now we can see we're using this 4K extender right here. We're going to be able to send actually that 18 gigabit per second signal over our category cable, 70 meters, and then we're able to see that 18 gigabit per second signal right here. So that is exactly how what the option you're going to have to do when you need to push through that high bandwidth signal. You have to make sure that you're installing a 444 extender. So with our 444 extenders, there's different options. You can have your 40 444 extender. You can have your, switch it back over. You can have your 70 meter 444 or your 100 meter 444. And that's what we see here. So we have our 40, our 70, our 100. This is our UHD, but we have a 444 one. When you jump to the 70 meter extender, you'll see it's a little bit bigger, right? Well, we have different chipset, make sure that it's able to handle those higher signals, but we're still using HD-based T technology, as you can see with the logo here. But what we also add is 2 Ethernet ports. So now we're able to send audio, video, power, control, and Ethernet all over this one category cable. And we're able to send that 70 meters. So now let's look at another instance where we have bump up to the next level. So now we have our 70 meter. Let's look at our 100 meter. So right now our 100 meter is connected to my display. I have my 4K. I have 4K signaling going up to my display from my computer, from my brand new MacBook. It's getting pushed on through to this 100-meter extender. Maybe I have my MacBook in a secure location, or maybe I have this is a computer in a secure location, and we need to access it from this room that this monitor is in. So how are we going to do that? You're actually able to access this computer using just this extender. And so let's look at exactly how to do that. With me, I have a couple tools that we'll use to do that. This right here is going to be a USB cable. And this is a USB cable that has your standard USB-A head and a USB B-type host. So I'll take my B-type host and my 100-meter extender that is connected to my computer right here, and I'll plug the B in as the host. Now I will take this and I will plug this into the USB slot on my computer. Now I have this extender sending USB signals to my display, or to my computer, at the same time as it's taking the display settings from my computer and then sending them up to this TV. Now, if we take this mouse right here and I go into my receiver unit, which is, even though I'm walking from right here to right here, let's picture that there's there's 100 meters in between, and we have a bunch of walls and concrete and foundation and all different things that you have that category cable running through. So I take this, plug it into this device. Now we have my mouse. You can't really see my mouse, so let me prove it. I'll move my window around. As you can see, I'm behind my head. That's getting all shaky. I'm about to get sick actually watching that. It's getting a little weird. But you can see I can now control this computer that is situated 100 meters away in a secure location. But I'm still, as a presenter or whatever I need to have access to at my command center, I can go in here and I can change everything. I can check the questions. We can do anything that we need to with USB extension. Now, you may notice when I am using my USB device right here, this is where the signal is being generated for that USB signal. So this device is taking that USB signal in the receiver, and the receiver is acting as a USB transmitter, transmitting that USB signal to the transmitter who's acting as a receiver, and then going into our computer. And what makes this so cool is now we have an 18 gigabit per second, 4K 444 signal coming out of my computer, going onto the screen, and at the same time, over this same single category cable, we are able to send USB signals bi-directionally. So we have HDMI signaling this way, USB this way, over one single cable. This is the true powerhouse of the AVPro Edge 444 lineup of extenders, because there's so much great uses that you can have with this when you add USB extension.
And
now,
Tom, we got a good question here too with obviously the new gaming systems, and the popularity of that. Is this a good setup for game systems?
Excellent question. So thank you so much for bringing that up. The new gaming consoles, they are actually pushing 8K. They're pushing an HDMI 2.1 signal. So that is going to be above even 18 gigabits per second. And think of when we think of how much data that really is, right? Let's think for a second. When you have good internet, you have 1 gigabit internet, you're pretty excited. That's a really good internet signal. Well, to pass a signal on our extenders right here, the UHD series, that's 10 gigabits per second. To pass a signal on this series, that's 18 gigabits per second. And to pass a signal from the newest gaming console, if you're going to max it out, that could be up to 40 gigabits per second. The only way currently that using these products to do that, if you are maxing it out, would be this cable is max or is rated for 48 gigabits per second. And we also have other cables that are rated for that same thing. But you're saying, Tom, I need to put this through distribution. I need to extend it just like you were talking, long distances. This isn't going to work. I can't get to the wall. I need to use an extender. I would suggest no problem, because this extender right here, this extender that is our 100 meter extender, this has EDID management built inside. And so what you're actually able to do with this extender is you can tell it to force your brand new gaming console to send out an 18 gigabit per second signal and a 4K 18 gigabit per second signal at 60 frames per second with HDR colors. It's beautiful. So you can, this is still a great device that you can still have your customers very happy using this device, but you just have to make sure that you're managing that EDID to make sure that the resolution is going down. If your customer is adamant about maxing out that, then you have to go with a fiber optic type solution that's going to give you that bandwidth to get to 40 gigabits per second. Great question, Jared, and keep those questions coming, guys. That's really good. And so one of the cool things that, you know, I do have a whole nother type that I'm going to talk about in a second, and we will get to this. And this is kind of the new from AVPro Edge that is going to kind of help you integrators out. And I don't want to bury the lead, but I definitely want to get into this beforehand. Is we talked quickly about EDID management. So that's just one more tool that AVPro Edge offers on certain extenders that we have. Like I said, if you go to our avproedge.com and just click on the big extender button, you'll be able to see all the extenders we have and all the different variations, or you can just give us a call, email me. My email's tom@avproglobal.com, and I can help you pick out the correct extender for your situation. But we put some tools inside of our extenders that make it easier for installers to put them in their installations and have a you know, positive installation. That's going to be EDID management's one of them. Another one is, what if I got in early and I got to install and I want to check to make sure everything's okay, and you know, maybe not even the sheetrock's not even up all the way, but I still get to do some wiring and the sources are definitely not there, but you still are going to install these extenders. How are you going to be able to ensure that your cabling is done right, that you're sending something through? Maybe you have a test pattern generator, and if you do, boom, you have your answer. You're going to use a test pattern generator. If you don't, though, we have our extenders have built-in test pattern generators. So if I look at this signal right here, this is our 100 meter extender. As I said, we have a little dip switch on the side here. So on the very side, there's a dip switch setting that if you take dip switch number 5, and the instructions are directly on the top, so you can always see the instructions now. But if I take dip switch number 5 and I just turn that to the on position, I should be able to then see a test pattern that'll come up right there. That is a full 4K test pattern. Where did that come from? Where did that image come from? Well, AVPro Edge has the installer's back. It actually just came from this device. It doesn't even have to be hooked up to a source. You can actually test your runs beforehand. It's just one really cool tool that you're not going to find from a lot of other places, or from any other places for that matter. So I'm going to switch that back over to our computer monitor here, so you guys can see that we're pushing that 4K signal from the monitor. All right. So you said, Tom, that looks really cool. Wow, extending HDMI. I never knew it could be so fun. Well, now you know it could be so fun. But you said, Tom, I got on an installation, and this house was installed a long time ago. Or you know, this house was built a long time ago. We're talking like long time ago, like 2001, wink. But in 2001, they still had Cat 5, and it was put everywhere throughout the installation. And as an installer, that's your only choice. You don't have any other option, and there's a couple long runs that your installation calls for. So at this build from 2001 has this category cable in it. You're going to try to use it. So I have that exact type of situation, and let's look at how HE-based how different extenders, how an integrator is able to manage that situation. So I have a special cable right here. This cable was sent to us by one of our integrators. We had a tech support person call, or an integrator called tech support, was having problems with one of their extenders. And they called us. They said, hey, what's the deal? What's going on? They had recently made a category cable, and they checked the continuity, and the RJ45 ends were terminated correctly. And everything from looking at this cable, it should be perfect. There's no reason why this cable should not work. So they get it and they plug it in. So let's see what happens. We have our EX70 right here. I'm gonna unhook this one, unhook this one. So now, we're connected to this TV. So now I'm going to, boom, I plugged it in. So now, let's see. Do I have a picture? No. Do I have a connection? There's no power here. Remember, guys, I haven't mentioned this, but I'm only powering one side of all these. The other sides don't have to be powered, but it gets power over PoE. I have a connection. There is a orange light blinking. So why am I getting no picture here? The continuity worked. Well, you know what? Maybe it was the extender. This extender is only a UHD. It can only do 10 gigabits per second. Let's bump it up to some higher bandwidth, and let's see if it was the extender, a better quality, higher, more powerful extender would be able to use this cable. So we'll go in here. I'll plug in my old cable. And then I'm going to use the 70, right? So let's try with the 70. The 70's got to be able to do this. I mean, why wouldn't it, right? This is such a powerful, it's the 444 line, could do 18 gigabits per second. It's just gonna force this cable, and we know it's a good cable because, it was terminated, it came right out of the box. Why should there be any problems with it? Oops. So you put it in the 70, and then, sometimes it takes a couple seconds, so let's see if we got a signal. Still no signal. So what happens when you have a situation like this, where you have a cable that looks good, sounds good, passes your continuity test? There's no reason why this cable shouldn't be working, but it isn't. How does that happen? There's a lot of different reasons this can happen. It could be EMI from somewhere else. It could be an inconsistency with the manufacturer. It could be that this got crimped at some point, and then the flow inside the copper cables was never the same. What are you going to do? Oh, I mean, really easily. You're going to put fiber, and you're going to put Cat 6 shielded in, and you're going to just run some new wire, right? That's a lot easier said than done. And we all know that. I know that, and I'm not even an installer. I'm the guy working at AVPro Edge. But I know that's a lot easier said than done. You can't always put new wiring in. Sometimes this wire that this integrator sent us that said there's no way that there's a problem with this wire. Well, and clearly we can see that there is. This is the wire you have. And so what do you do in those situations? Do you do nothing? Well, that's actually not the case. There is something you can do. So let's see what you can do when you have a cable that is not stable enough. It's not a good signal. You can't put uncompressed signaling over this cable. Well, AVPro Edge recently introduced our AV over IP system. An AV over IP system uses the network infrastructure to send audio video signals. It doesn't use HD-based-T, and there are some compression to make it so that you can send the signals from one point to another. So even though these are uncompressed, are going to give you the higher signal, when you find, or give you the better quality picture, when you find yourself in that scenario, let's see if we can use this same cable that's giving everyone else problems with our MXNet, how that reacts. So let's connect one in here. I connect one in here. These are AV over IP, so we call this the encoder, and that's the decoder. And then let's send a signal over. So I have my test pattern generator that we will send over here. And let's put our HDMI in over here. And I took it out of my 70, so I'll go right here. We'll put the HDMI cable that's connected to this TV. We are going to connect it to this MXNet system. So this is the receiver. I can see right here, I have a little screen. I can see what the IP is, and I can match it up so that we don't need to have a point-to-point solution at all. I mean, a point-to-network to another decoder. We're removing the network switch in this AV over IP use. And now, as you can see, we are sending the signal over this category cable that none of these other products were able to send it by, and we're able to put it over here. And this is how we do that, actually. So right now, how you're actually able to do that is you take in the signal that is 4K right here. So let me make sure that we are on a, right now I just upped it to 4K 60 because I just wanted to blast this thing out, right? We wanted to send the highest signal just like we were going to send to one of these. And with this 4K 60 signal, I'm now going into this encoder. And instead of just converting it to HD base T to send uncompressed, we're actually processing that signal a little bit, and we take it and we massage it a little bit and we compress it a little bit smaller. And now we can actually send it through a cabling that would not need to have that perfect signal flow. We can have push it down to maybe a cable that was built for like a 10100 Ethernet network. We can now send this 4K 60 444 signal over this cable that wasn't going to work with any of these other extender options, and then you come out of this receiver. So as you can see here, bada bing, bada boom, we have it. I can switch, you know, the test patterns. As you guys can see, I can just switch them live, and everything is working well. Now, you're asking, well, Tom, why did you even tell us about any of the other ones? Why don't I just use this every single time? And that's not going to be the case. You're only going to want to use this when the situation calls for it. These other extenders are going to give you the best picture quality possible. That's what you get from HD base T. They make sure that you're getting pixel for pixel information correctly sent from point A to point B over long distances using category cable. For the AV over IP, this is the type of situation where HD base T isn't going to work. Your infrastructure is not exactly how you wanted it. So what you're able to do is you're able to buy an encoder, decoder, and you're now able to still send a signal. Sometimes, even if it's not the best quality picture, your customer still needs to have a picture. And so this is an option that you'd be able to use for those instances. So now we have looked at basically.
There's a question too. Is that its point-to-point solution, or are you using a network switch?
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a great question. This is built to be used with a network switch. It's a part of our MXNet ecosystem. And that ecosystem, for people that don't know, it takes a encoder, and that signaling goes to a network switch. And then that network switch can go out to as many decoders as you want, repeating different signals and switching the signals. Now, what we're doing in this instance is we're subtracting that network switch, and we're going point to point from that encoder to decoder without a network switch. So what we're able to do is use this cable that our customer sent us that they swore was really good, but they knew that HD base T wasn't going to play right. But when we needed to use this less quality cable, we still found that our MXNet encoder to decoder point-to-point solution was able to handle that. That's a great question. Thank you so much, Jared. Do we have any other questions, Jared, that came in?
No. Other than that, no.
Excellent.
We've had a few. You know, some bandwidth questions. We have a nice bandwidth chart. I'll actually put that out on the chat for everyone. Just shows the different signals. You know, different chroma subsampling rates, different bit depths, and you know, what the corresponding bandwidth is as well.
Exactly. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. So look at that for that in the chat. We also have it on our website that you would be able to find it. I'll put the link on YouTube for people following later. I did want to say, you know, now that we have our three types, right? We have HDMI cables. This is our HDMI cable. We have our HD base T solutions. That's, you know, our 40, 70, 100 meter solutions that are going to be doing USB and Ethernet. And then we have our AV over IP solution with MXNet. that's also able to do USB as well. And those are kind of your 3 different options as a professional installer for installing. Am I going to use a point-to-point extender with HD-base-T? Am I going to do it with AV over IP? Am I going to use just MX or bullet train? And then of course you have fiber optics as well. Now, some people need just audio extended. A lot of times you may have this, even the category cable that's not as stable as some of this big Cat 6 shielded. You can use to take the audio out of the internal apps of your TV or from a stereo system or an audio source that's further away from your distributed audio system. We also have these. These are just point-to-point audio extenders where you're able to come in either 2-channel or toss-link up to 6 channels, and then over that category cable, extend that up to 150 meters or 130 meters using shielded and 100 meters using unshielded twisted pair. So we definitely have audio extenders as well. But this now is kind of our entire solution for for HDMI extension. You've seen all the different types. Now, I thank you guys so much for coming in and checking out the presentation, looking at how HDMI is being presented live. If you do have any other questions, make sure you're submitting them right now to Jared, and we'll be sure to answer those. But I want to say that I'm at the end of my presentation. So I want to thank you guys so much for coming and joining me today as we talk about HDMI extension. If you guys do have any questions, of course, and it comes to you later down the line, you can always just email us at info@avproedge.com. You can email me directly at tom@avproglobal.com, and we'd be able to answer. We always have different trainings happening once a month, so be on the lookout for what's going to be coming up. You'll see that in the newsletter. If you're not signed up for the newsletter, make sure you do that at avproedge.com. Jared, one last check. Did we have any questions coming in today?
Nope, we are good to go.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thanks, Jared, for joining me today, and thank you, everybody, from watching from work or from home. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day and a good week. Thank you very much.